Hugh, Ben's right, isn't he? I mean, it's from the other point of view to you, but you both have reached the same conclusion that a negotiated settlement is not possible because the Ukrainian demands are for regime change in Moscow, and Moscow's demands are for things that you say, and I'm sure you're right at this point, that the political class, at least in Ukraine, would not allow him to sign. Ergo, we do have a long-term war lasting many years and potentially spilling over into the neighbourhood.
Well, it's a long question. The first thing you said was Ben's right, isn't he? And I don't think Ben is right. I mean, I don't feel that in his contribution, or indeed in Mark's contribution, or in many of the contributions, that there has been a requisite level of knowledge and information about what is happening on the ground. That's just my point of view. Now, you may be right, and I may be wrong. I've been there. I've seen these things. I've seen them from a very balanced anti-fascist perspective, a socialist perspective. But I have to tell you that people's lives and families and jobs and dreams and children and pets are being destroyed. And that's got to stop. The Russian troops have to withdraw. They have to go back into their own country.
And if they don't, the war will go on. That's what I'm trying
to... The war,
to...
it isn't the... You are right that the political class won't allow Zelensky to sign it. The ordinary people of Ukraine have suffered so much that they won't allow Zelensky to sign a peace deal.
What about the 40% Russian speakers?
It's just not... I mean, the Russian speakers in Lugansk... Jerry made this point. Mark made this point about the people in Lugansk and Donetsk. The Russian speakers in Lugansk and Donetsk, the people that I care most about in Ukraine, they have been so appalled by the prospect of the future under Putin that is being presented to them, that of those people speaking Russian, I've been in Donetsk, in Lugansk, I went through the point of contact,
not
and
there are...
I have been in the last few weeks.
You were in the East?
I was in the East in the last few weeks. I mean, it depends where you call the point of contact, but I was...
Were you in the new republics?
I was on the edge of the new republics. Okay. The point I'm making is that people who came out of the new republics, refugees from the new republics, who
came west.
Who came west.
That wasn't many, was it?
It wasn't many, but there are many Russian speakers who've decided they don't want to speak Russian. I mean, I totally agree with you. I'm on the side of the Russian speakers, and I do think that as a minority, they haven't been protected. And there's, as I say, a fascist element in the Ukrainian government. I don't deny that. But I am talking about the value of human life, which it's important that politicians kind of prioritise.
Jyoti, although Hugh doesn't want to acknowledge the actual confluence of his view and Ben's, both of them are really saying is that there will be no peaceful solution, there will be no negotiation. So all the talks in Turkey and so on are therefore really window dressing, aren't they? This war is going to drag on and on.
I wouldn't like to say it will definitely drag on and on. I think facts on the ground are being made. There is an opportunity for Ukraine to accept the facts on the ground. The question is very much whether Zelensky and the people around him are in any position to accept facts on the ground, because the reality is they've been shown very clearly to be total puppets of the USA. And at this moment in time, the USA and Britain and the NATO powers are not prepared to accept facts on the ground. Nevertheless, the facts are being made, and it may well come to a point where they are forced to accept those, which is exactly why, as Jerry pointed out, I mean, many in Russia are worried that the Russian operation will be brought to a close a bit too soon when the NATO powers realise the facts on the ground and try to make a compromise that doesn't really allow the war to be properly ended, but leaves a kind of stalemate that drags on and on and on. You know, we've heard a lot about, you know, Zelensky's under pressure from the Ukrainian people. This is not true. He was elected on a hope, on a wish by people for peace, because he's Jewish, because he's Russian-speaking, because he looked as if he might be able to bring the war in Ukraine to a close. That was his platform. That was why he was elected. That's what the people of Ukraine really wanted. He couldn't deliver that. He couldn't deliver that because he's a puppet president. He has no control. He couldn't talk peace with the Azov. They stuck two fingers up at him. They sent him packing, and he was made to look very foolish when he did a little bit of trying to talk peace on the border. And since then, he had to backtrack from that position. But he's basically an actor, you know, and he's there to fulfil a role, and he's being dressed up. And it's, you know, it's sad for me to hear Hugh talk and use the language of socialism to cover what are essentially imperialist talking points from start to finish. You know, and anybody who tries to
They're
present...
not imperialist. I'm talking about the pointless taking of human life. That there's no imperialism in that. I'm talking about the murder of innocent people indiscriminately, pointlessly. That's not about imperialism.
These are allegations for which I have seen no substantiating evidence. You know, the people who are pushing these allegations are part of a CIA-controlled media operation.
Am I part of a CIA?
It is a psychological... I don't know.
Well, I've been
Maybe.
there.
I don't know you.
You think I might be part
It's possible. Perfectly possible. There is...
It's, again, very deep cover. It's very deep cover.
There is a huge psychological operation. There's a psychological warfare being waged against the people of the West in order to make them believe that Vladimir Putin is some kind of evil maniac.
And you don't believe he is?
No, of course not.
What do you mean, of course not? There's no of course not.
Well, if he were
a controversial point. You don't believe
Not to me.
You don't believe that Vladimir Putin, the fascist, is an evil maniac.
Well, Hugh, if he were an evil maniacal fascist, and the
I'm asking her whether she believes he is. I'm not saying I believe he is.
And the opposition pollsters record phenomenal levels of support for him in Russia. Ipso facto, that would make the Russian people that you say you love, lovers of a genocidal, mentally ill fascist. And that's hyperbole with rockets on it.
Are we talking about the Levada poll or a telephone polling? If I was living in Putin's gangster kingdom and somebody rang me up on the telephone and said, do you support Vladimir Putin? And my children are playing in the sitting room, I'd probably say yes. I'd be frightened.
Okay.
George, I'm sorry, these are imperialist talking points. When they describe Vladimir Putin as a dictator, as a gangster, what they're saying is he has the temerity to head a government that stands up for Russia.
Tell us what
That's what they mean.
Tell us what you think, Vladimir. Don't worry about what the imperialists think he is. What do you think Vladimir Putin is?
But
it's interesting. It's an interesting point of view.
You cannot discuss.
We're running out of time. So,
you cannot discuss international politics on the basis of good against evil. That's Judeo-Christian nonsense.
Do you, Jerry,
what we have,
believe Vladimir Putin
he already
is?
told
No, it's not. It's not good.
He's satisfied.
I absolutely admit that Putin is an absolute scoundrel.
Jyoti doesn't think.
But apart from that, what is the issues involved? The issues involved is that NATO and the West are attempting over the regime change in Russia. They're attempting to, and were they to succeed in that, of course, the position of the working class in Russia would be 10 times worse than it is now.
That's what Hugh wants as well, regime change in Russia.
You know,
for the sake of the
whole thing,
not imposed from outside.
It's not good and evil.
Jerry makes a good point. The working class of Russia, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom have an awful lot in common. They should be united. There's a solidarity there. These are good points. The idea that I'm making imperialist kind of arguments is nonsensical.
But the programme's not about you.
I know it's not about anybody. I'm being attacked. I just want to make the point. You can't have moral equivalence fallacy. Just because NATO is evil, just because America is wrong,
but I don't accept any of the evil stuff.
Just because of the crimes of British imperialism doesn't mean one is entitled to take innocent people's lives.
OK, although that happens all the time, as you well know, including
But there is
wars
no justification for it. Of course it happens all the time, but endlessly, whenever you talk to people about what the Russian army are doing, they tell you about what awful things other people have done.
Shall I tell you about what our armies did in Iraq?
No, that's my point. Let's talk about the topic we're on here to discuss.
You don't want to talk about what our government did in Syria.
I talk about it all the time. Read my manifesto. Read my manifesto.
I didn't know you had a manifesto. But I'm determined that this programme should not be about you or about any of the guests. It's about
Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine.
Not Syria.
No, but...
It's about Ukraine. Let's talk about Ukraine.
Most viewers will have noticed a certain double standard in the vehemence and, in fact, the frankly edging on the unhinged use of demonic language and Manichaean.
That's demonic language.
No, actually,
That's demonic language. You're using it now.
The show.
You're using it now.
I think most viewers have probably already concluded that we're not going to find agreement around this room.
Neither are Zelensky and Putin.
It may.
Well,
You seem to wish that to be true, and that perhaps is telling.
I don't. It's not about me. I thought it wasn't about me. You keep saying what I wish.
It's quite clear.
Talking about Ukraine.
It's quite clear that the West does not wish a negotiated solution to emerge, and therefore that means the war goes on. That means all the crocodile tears about the costs of the war are just that. Crocodile tears. If you want the war to end, you have to be prepared to negotiate an end to it. If you want the war to continue, then, frankly, people will judge your motives accordingly. Not much light emerged from this show this evening, but a lot of heat, and I hope that the audience enjoyed it. I've been George Galloway. This is Kalimahorra on Al Mayadeen Television. I wish you good night.